3 of speed revision. We have already completed unit number 1, unit number 10 and unit number 2, and today we are going to discuss evolution and diversity of organisms, which is the third unit in our A-level syllabus. So if you take a look at this unit and the allocated time, it would be just 61 periods from the 600 periods that are allocated for the whole syllabus. And you can score about 10 marks from this unit if you answer all the questions that are coming to the A-level paper, like without missing anyone. It would be like 10 marks. So if you see, like if you look at the way these 10 marks are distributed, usually 5 MCQs, 5 or 6 maximum, but for the past 4 years it has been just 5 MCQs starting from year 2019, and a subpart in the structured essay paper, usually a short note in the essay paper. So that's how these 10 marks get distributed throughout the A-level paper. So when we look at the past MCQ analysis, so as you can see here, it has been consistently 5 MCQs from this unit. So usually within the first 20 MCQs, and very rarely they appear in the last 10 MCQs. As in year 2019, 42nd MCQ is also from this particular unit. So when we analyze this further, we can identify all the high yielding sections in this particular unit. If we take the best thing out of all of them, the charts. The most important thing in this unit is the charts that are mentioned in the resource book. So there are 2 basic charts. This chart, if you remember, the chart about bacteria, archaea and eukarya. So the 3 domain classification chart plus the dicot and monocot chart. So those 2 charts have been a place where many MCQs and many subparts in the structured essay was made. So that is a very high yielding section. So when you study that unit, you have to pay a lot of attention and highlight those parts in order to memorize them completely if you can. So the next thing is unique features, or the features that appeared only in a particular domain, only in a particular class, only in a particular phylum. In that way, you have to analyze the theory. So the next thing about common features in 2 domains, common features to 2 particular phyla, or even 2 classes if you take core data. So the next thing is taxonomy and binomial nomenclature, and there were some MCQs from this evolutionary relationship, which is like which plant phyla is evolutionary related, like closely related to something else. So that hierarchy is also very important. And another thing is the first appearance of a particular character, particular feature. So what I'm trying to emphasize from this is, when you scan for these facts, don't just passively read the note trying to memorize everything or by heart everything, because you will end up like completely lost, because you will never retain any information in your head, because it was just reading with no highlights, just passive reading. So let's move to the model paper. I will be discussing the whole MCQ, like whole paper today. So I'm not doing the structured essay in this video, but I hope to do that one. I'm not sure whether I will be able to do it soon. So we are in model paper 3 for unit number 3, evolution and diversity of organisms. So this model paper has 15 MCQs, and all of them were created based on the A-level question pattern. So if we take question number 1, which one of the following is not a kingdom included in the 5 kingdom classification of Whittaker? So they're asking about Robert Whittaker. So there are few people mentioned in this particular unit in the resource book, starting from Aristotle, and we have Theophrastus, and we have Carolus Linnaeus, Ernest Haeckel, Robert Whittaker, Carl Woese, and if you go further, Darwin-Wallace theory, Darwin and Wallace. So a little bit of Mendel also there in Neo-Darwinism, but it's not highlighted. So those are the, if you take the highlighted people in this particular unit. Now in this question they are talking about Whittaker. So if we start from the beginning, five kingdom classification was the thing that was introduced by Whittaker. So they are asking about this five kingdom classification. So the best thing is trying to remind what are the kingdoms in that five kingdom classification. Simply, they are kingdom Monera, Protista, Fungi, Plantae and Animalia. So there's another classification which is three domain classification, which is above this kingdoms, but it was introduced later. So domain classification was introduced by Carl Woese, and this five kingdom classification, in this five kingdom classification, so the missing one, if you write them down, Monera, Protista, Fungi, Plantae and Animalia. So from the answers given, you can easily eliminate the first three and the fifth answer, and you will end up with the fourth one. So it is bacteria. Bacteria is not a kingdom, it is a domain. The next question, in the classification of organisms, the taxon phylum was introduced by. So this thing, if we start from Carolus Linnaeus, who tried to classify the organisms very early, he introduced two kingdoms, and then Ernest Haeckel came and introduced another kingdom. So Carolus Linnaeus introduced kingdom Plantae and Animalia, and those were the only kingdoms present at that time. So this is the era before Robert Whittaker and all. So the first thing was kingdom Plantae and kingdom Animalia. So the next third kingdom was introduced by Ernest Haeckel, which is kingdom Protista. And in the taxonomy, he introduced a taxon phylum. So that's the question here. Who introduced the taxon phylum? So that would be Ernest Haeckel. So the first answer given here is Carl Woese. Carl Woese introduced three domain classification. Robert Whittaker was mentioned in the previous question, so he introduced five kingdom classification. Carolus Linnaeus is mainly, he introduced binomial nomenclature. That's the best thing about him, because his classifications were not much, I would say, successful, because later on people changed them. So the five kingdom classification goes to Robert Whittaker, not Carolus Linnaeus, even though he introduced the first two kingdoms. The five kingdom classification is the accepted one, and it was introduced by Robert Whittaker. So Carolus Linnaeus kind of tried to classify plants and I think basically flowers based on the stamens and all that. You have to remember that also if you can, but the most important thing is about him is the explanation about binomial nomenclature. So the next one is Aristotle. He is also a very important person in this story, because he's the first one who classified organisms scientifically. Initially we had an artificial classification, but Aristotle was the one who was the one that started identifying and classifying organisms scientifically for the first time. So that's about him. So the third question, correct statement regarding the organisms of kingdom Protista. So kingdom Protista is a very important kingdom because it is considered as an artificial group, because it is polyphyletic, which means it has an origin from different groups, different ancestors. So the word here, if you take the answers given here, the word all is common. So all are heterotrophs, all are unicellular, all are eukaryotes, all are microscopic, all possess cells with cell walls. So the best tip that I can give you is try to memorize these kingdoms and their features using examples. So that would be the best thing that you can do. And this word all, when you see words like all, only, always, in an MCQ paper, you have to be very careful because usually those words kind of trick you if you don't remember the theory exactly. So when we take the examples that are given in the resource book regarding kingdom Protista, we have Euglena, we have Paramecium, we have amoeba, and a few types of alga. So if we take the types of alga, we have green alga, which is alva or ulva, red alga, which is gelidium, brown alga, which is sargassum, and finally we have golden brown alga, which is also known as diatoms. So they're saying that all are heterotrophs. Usually alga are photosynthetic. So kind of it could be doubtful if you don't remember that exactly, but initially in the features of kingdom Protista, they have mentioned that they have both photoautotrophic, heterotrophic and mixotrophic organisms. So you can't directly say that all are heterotrophs because if you remember, you can kind of logically think about it with regards to the chlorophyll pigments mentioned here with regards to these algae. So if they have chlorophyll, they are obviously going to photosynthesize. So if they can photosynthesize, why would they be heterotrophs? So that also could be a logical explanation. You can think it in that way. Anyways, all of them are not heterotrophic. If you take Euglena is a mixotroph, and Paramecium is a heterotroph, and amoeba is also a heterotroph. And alga has different stories, so you have to study that separately. And all are unicellular, so you can literally see these alga if you go to a beach area. Gelidium and stuff like that are visible, so if they were unicellular, we will never be able to see them. So all of them are unicellular. That can't be true. So the next thing is the correct one, because they are eukaryotic, because all of them belong to domain eukarya in the initial state. So the next one is all are microscopic. That also cannot be true because we can see gelidium and alva through our naked eye. We don't need microscopes. So the next thing, all possess cells with cell walls. This one could be tricky because you might get, they have different features, but most of them lack cell wall unless it's an alga. So the best example that you can kind of memorize with regards to this is amoeba. So amoeba has pseudopodia. For them to have pseudopodia, and they have a very weird shape, because they have pseudopods, they move kind of in a weird way, so they can change their body shape in that way only because they don't have a cell wall. They don't have a cell wall. If they had a rigid cell wall, I don't think they cannot move like that. So just because they don't have a cell wall, they can move with their pseudopods. So that's about that question. And the next one, the characteristic which is not found in the species of phylum Lycophyta. So before I analyze this question, let's go to the hierarchy of plants. I will try to draw it here. So plants basically divide into two types, as non-vascular plants and vascular plants. So that's the first division. The next thing, vascular plants further divide as seedless and seed plants. So then seed plants further divide as gymnosperm, which means seeds are not enclosed in a chamber, and angiosperms, where seeds are enclosed in a chamber. So if we take the examples of non-vascular plants, starting according to the evolutionary relationship. Firstly, it was hepatophyta, then bryophyta, then anthocerophyta. So another name for hepatophyta is liverworts. The example is Mercantia. So liverworts. So hepatic, if you remember, in circulatory system and even in digestive system, we talk about the liver. So the basic structural unit of liver is hepatocytes. So hepatophyta came like that, I assume, because that's the same word and it means the same thing. So hepatophyta is also known as liverworts, and the example is Mercantia. Bryophyta means mosses, and the example given in the book is Pogonatum. And the next thing is hornworts, which is also known as Anthocerophyta. Example is Anthocerus. And the next thing is seedless vascular plants. So there are two main phyla present under this, as phylum Lycophyta and phylum Pterophyta. So the phylum of Lycophyta divide further as spike mosses and club mosses. And spike mosses, all spike mosses are heterosporous. And the example is Selaginella, and all club mosses are homosporous, and the example given in the book is Lycopodium. So the next phyla is the phylum Pterophyta. The example is Nephrolepis. So all of them are homosporous with a bisexual gametophyte. So the uniqueness about Nephrolepis, like gametophyte of Nephrolepis, would be having a heart shape. So that's related unit number 4. So the next thing is seedless seed plants. So gymnosperms and angiosperms. There are no further information. I'm not going to explain it further. Let's go to the question. The characteristic which is not found in the species of phylum Lycophyta. So the trick here is the word all again. I wanted to highlight that because that's a very important tip in an MCQ paper, because words like all and only always has something behind them. So when you see those words, you have to be very careful. So they're saying all are heterosporous. So I mentioned earlier, phylum Lycophyta has both spike mosses and club mosses. So spike mosses are heterosporous while club mosses are homosporous. So because of that, you can't say that all of them are heterosporous. Did I say heterotrophic? It should be heterosporous. I'm sorry if I said that. So heterosporous, which means producing two types of spores as megaspores and microspores. So the next question. Which combination of plants represent the correct order of example for the given feature? Microphyls in xylem with vessels, monoecious gametophyte, and heterosporous. So the best thing for these type of questions would be the method of elimination. So the first feature, microphyls. So microphyls or megaphylls, it means leaves, evolution of leaves. That happened in vascular plants. So the first given answer cannot be a non-vascular plant. So we can eliminate fourth answer and the fifth answer, because Pogonatum is a bryophyte, which is a non-vascular plant. So they don't have these type of leaves, true leaves actually. So when we mention about the leaves of these non-vascular plants, we kind of do we mention them between like quotations. So that's wrong. So fifth one and fourth one are wrong. Because of that, we can eliminate that answer. So the next one, vascular xylem with vessels. So this is very important. Vascular tissues in early vascular plants. Like if we take in phylum, I would say phylum Lycophyta, phylum Pterophyta, they had vascular tissues, that's true, that's why they are known as vascular plants, but they did not have xylem vessels. So xylem vessels are present only in some gymnosperms and all angiosperms. So xylem vessel thing cannot be seen in early vascular plants. So if you don't remember that fact, that's okay. So the uniqueness about the given answers is Nitum is present. So Nitum is like the only gymnosperm with xylem vessels. Pinus is also related to gymnosperms, but it does not have xylem with vessels, even though it's a vascular plant. So already we eliminated those two answers, so we are left with 1, 2 and 3. So if you remember the fact that I mentioned earlier, you can eliminate the first answer because nephroliphids, even though they had vascular tissues, they did not have xylems with vessel elements. So now we are left with the second answer and the third answer. So monoecious gametophyte and heterospory. So monoecious gametophyte was a unique feature in phylum Pterophyta. The given example is Nephrolepis. So Selaginella had a dioecious gametophyte, and in that way you can go to that answer. I think that's the only possible way because heterospory is common to both Pinus and mango. And Nephrolepis, we are left with second and the third answer now. So if you take Nephrolepis, it is homosporous. So you can eliminate third answer in that way. So then in that way you can reach to the answer. Another very important thing I wanted to mention through this question was the word monoecious and dioecious. So monoecious means bisexual, which means the same whatever has both male and female stuff together. So dioecious means unisexual, which means having two separate structures to carry male and female, that related thing. So that's the meaning of monoecious and dioecious. These facts are very, very important. So Selaginella has a monoecious sporophyte, which is their strobilus, where they have both micro and megaspores. And Nephrolepis has a monoecious gametophyte, which means it has both male and female gametes present in the same plant. Okay? And I mentioned earlier another important thing, gymnosperms. In gymnosperms, the only gymnosperm with vessels in xylem is Nitum. So that's the given example in the resource book, that is highlighted in the resource book also. So it's better to remember that information. The next one, which of the following indicates the correct format for a scientific name? So I added this question to remind you about the binomial nomenclature. So it has two parts, as the first one, Coccus nucifera. So that first name and the second name both has capital letters. So the thing about this, the thing that I wanted to highlight was you have to remember the rules of naming an organism. So Coccus nucifera, the mistake in the first one is having a capital letter in the middle. So when we name the organism, the generic name and specific epithet is given. So the first one, Coccus, after that, after the first letter, all the other letters should be simple. So because of that, the first is wrong. The next one is Coccus nucifera, which is the correct answer. So here, just because it's correct, because it is like printed. When it is printed, you have to italicize it, but if it is handwritten, you have to underline those two names separately. So I will write it here. If we write it down in in letters, Coccus nucifera, you have to underline Coccus and nucifera separately. So that will be important for you in the structured essay paper if they ask for a scientific name. Okay, the third one is wrong because it is not italicized. The fourth one is wrong again because of the capitalization, and you don't underline them together. You have to underline them separately. Here it is printed, so you can't underline. You don't have to underline. You have to italicize it. So the next one is the two names are together. You have to have a space between the generic name and the specific epithet. So that's the mistake. 7th question. Two phyla that include organisms having glycogen as the main storage component. So glycogen acts as a storage component in animals and fungi. So this one is related to unit number 2 if you remember the chart in carbohydrates. So they have mentioned about glycogen. So it is a polymer of glucose, a storage polymer. So the best thing about this is you have to eliminate plants, because usually the plants has starch as their storage component, and you have to check whether the given example is an animal type or a fungi type. If it is in those two categories, you can kingdom Animalia or kingdom Fungi. You can agree with the fact that glycogen act as their storage component, main storage food. So the first answer, Chytridium mycota, that's a fungi. Lycophyta. So Lycophyta is a vascular seedless plant. Examples would be Lycopodium and Selaginella. And that's out because it's a plant. The next one, Chordata and Anthophyta. So Anthophytes are again plants. That's out. The answer is Basidium mycota and Ascomycota, because both of those phyla are from kingdom fungi. So coniferous out, Ctophyta and Pterophyta, both plants, they are out because of that. So the next question, a characteristic common to both domain bacteria and eukarya. So I mentioned earlier, it is very, very important to identify, I would say, like study and analyze the charts mentioned in the resource book regarding these 3 domains. So here they're talking about domain bacteria and eukarya. So if you take a look at these two domains, plus there's another domain archaea. So bacteria, archaea and eukarya. So there are many common characteristics to domain archaea and eukarya. They are closely related, but domain bacteria is kind of different from both of them, and very rarely it shares common features with eukarya and archaea, but mostly there are many common features between archaea and eukarya. So bacteria and eukarya very rarely have common features. So one of them is the presence of unbranched hydrocarbons in their membrane lipids. So the next question, so the other examples are given just totally based on the chart given in the resource book. I will discuss it further when we discuss the 9th question, because it's also from the same chart. So this is a different aspect of it, but it's a similar, like the same format related to the feature of a particular domain plus the example. So this is again based on the domain classification. So the best way to approach this question would be firstly identifying the domain, and for that you have to remember the examples together with the domain. So in domain bacteria, the examples given are bacteria, Cyanobacteria, Nostoc, Anabina, Escherichia coli and Salmonella typhi. So if I write them down, Cyanobacteria, Nostoc, Anabina, E. coli and Salmonella typhi. So I will be just abbreviating it because it will waste your time if I write the whole thing. So the next thing is domain archaea. There are 3 examples given as Methanococcus, Thermococcus and Halobacterium. And finally we have domain eukarya. We have the 4 kingdoms, kingdom Protista, fungi, plantae and animalia. So that's easy. So first you have to identify the domain with regards to this particular organisms given here. So Thermococcus is, I will be writing B, A and E with regards to each and every domain present in these examples. So the first one, Thermococcus, is from domain archaea, and Methanococcus again domain archaea, diatoms from kingdom Protista, which is domain eukarya, bacteria, domain bacteria. So the next one is Thermococcus again. So it would be A for the rest of the 4 answers. And Salmonella is from domain bacteria. Nostoc is from bacteria. Anabina again from bacteria. Halobacterium is an example of domain archaea. Chytridium is a fungi, so it's eukarya. Euglena, protista, eukarya. Paramecium, protista, eukarya. Bacteria is bacteria. So again bacteria. Methanococcus is from domain archaea. So Chytridium again we have fungi and bacteria. So now to the features given here. The first feature, growth at temperatures above 100 degrees Celsius. So this was present only in domain archaea because they can stand those I would say those adverse conditions, high temperature, high salinity, high pressure, high saltiness, so those stuff can be tolerated by these bacteria types in domain bacteria. So the first answer should be Thermococcus. It's specific to Thermococcus because they can stand high temperature. So from the given answers, I don't think we can eliminate anything related to that except the 5th one. So you can't do much with that particular clue. So we'll move on to the next one. Growth is not inhibited by streptomycin antibiotic. It is not inhibited by. So this feature is common to domain archaea and eukarya. So if anyone related to domain bacteria is present here, it has to be wrong. So in that way, we can eliminate the second answer, third answer and 4th answer. And we will end up with the correct answer, answer number 1. So I want to analyze this further because the reason why we take antibiotics is to protect ourselves against bacteria, basically, because archaeobacteria won't be inhibited by these antibiotics. And as humans, we are also not inhibited by that. So if we also get inhibited by these antibiotics, it will be suicidal. There's no point in taking those medicine or drugs. So that's it about that. So the third feature, lack peptidoglycan in cell wall. So peptidoglycan is absent in eukarya and archaeobacteria. So circular chromosomes present in both archaeobacteria and bacteria. So domain archaea and bacteria both have circular chromosomes, but eukarya do not have circular chromosomes. So that's the explanation for that question. So we'll move on to the 10th question. So which of the following features is common only for mammals and aves? So they're saying only for mammals and aves. So if we take lungs, we can't agree with that because reptiles also have lungs. Differentiated teeth, that's present in reptiles. If we take a crocodile, so you've seen their teeth. So endothermy is common to both, only to mammals and aves when we analyze with the given examples and facts in the resource book. So that's how you got the answer. This is a very common question. I repeated this because it was never asked in the new syllabus as far as I remember. So internal fertilization is interesting, but it's not like common only for mammals and aves. Other organisms also have this in them. So the next one, bony scales. So that's related to fish types basically, and mammals and aves. Those, like if you take mammals like a cow and a bird, they don't have bony scales in their body, so that's not relevant. 11th question. A vertebrate class is sensitive to environmental changes. No marine species lay eggs without a shell. So the format is they give you features and ask for another feature, or sometimes they ask for the phyla or the class to identify that, or else sometimes they kind of ask you to identify another feature with regards. So the strategy is, using the given clues, you have to identify the particular phyla and then kind of analyze the given answers and identify that particular new characteristic from the given answers. If not, they will just ask you to identify the relevant phyla, domain, or the class. So this is a question that they ask about the class. The unique feature is has no marine species, that's what they say, and laying eggs without a shell. So this is very, very common to amphibia. So amphibians, they don't lay shelled eggs. They have eggs without a shell because they have external fertilization. So in order for that to occur, they have an egg they lay eggs without shells. So that's the reason behind it. The next question is question number 12. This was a question from Olympiad paper in year 2020. Which of the following classes contain the organisms that show only internal fertilization? So internal fertilization again. So if I analyze all the classes that are mentioned in phylum Chordata and Chondrichthyes, they have only internal fertilization. Osteichthyes most external, some internal. And amphibia, we have external, and they have eggs without a shell. Because of that, I mentioned that earlier. And reptiles, internal, aves internal, and because of that, they lay shelled eggs. So because the fertilization has already occurred inside, they have shelled eggs. So when they lay eggs. So that's the logic behind it. So the next one is mammals, class Mammalia. Obviously it's internal fertilization. If you take humans, as it would be the best example. So you can filter this whole question by just using class Osteichthyes and amphibia. So if answers have at least one of them, that could be wrong because they have external fertilization also. They are not only showing internal fertilization. So because of that, the first answer we have Osteichthyes, that's wrong. Next answer we have amphibia. Again, in the third answer we have Osteichthyes, so that's wrong. Fifth answer also has Osteichthyes and both amphibia. Because of that, so the answer would be the fourth one. That's the correct answer. Even though this is an Olympiad question, which is a so-called exam, which is kind of an exam that we consider the smart biology type students go and write. So there are very simple logics to tackle these type of questions. It's not about being so smart, it's about handling that particular question according to the information that you already know. Okay, so that's why I added that question. So I will do a video on how to apply to Olympiad and how you can try out those papers, and you can use the past papers of Olympiad questions that will kind of help you to think differently, I would say. So I will talk about that in a future video. So the next thing is question number 13, incorrect statement regarding monocots and dicots. So this whole question is based on the chart about monocots and dicots. So what they usually do in long statement questions is that they try to, I would say, they kind of try to shift keywords or add words like all, only, always, and those are the things that they use to mess with your head. So here, what I've done here, I would tell you the trick behind the question format. So vascular bundles in the roots are scattered in monocots. So I changed the word shoots present in the book into roots. So in that way, I kind of shifted the whole correct statement into a wrong one. So if I draw the diagram of monocot roots, And dicot roots, they're kind of similar, but dicot has an X kind of shape, like I would say cross shape in the center. Monocots has a very properly organized vascular bundles in the root. But if we take the stem, monocot stem is the one that has scattered vascular bundles, not the root. So that's the reason behind this particular answer being wrong. Okay. So question number 14. Which of the following events did not occur during the Phanerozoic eons? So my opinion about this theory part, about these eons and eras, it's a waste of time trying to remember all the facts, but if you can remember some key events, you can try to use that in order to eliminate answers and go for an answer. But it's a huge waste of time. Like, you are putting an effort of 1,000 and you will get like a 2% of output, so that's not efficient. So I don't think, it doesn't worth it trying to study the whole thing. If you don't like that section, that's okay. So I added this question because it was also repeated, even though they have mentioned in the book those like I would say those features and those events are not important. They kind of ask that questions based on that particular theory part. So A, origin of Earth happened in Hadean eon, and B, occurred in Archean eon. So basically there are 4 eons: Hadean, Archean, Proterozoic and Phanerozoic divides into 3 eras. So that's about them. The next question, the final question: which of the following is found only in phylum Mollusca? So if we eliminate the given answers, hemocell, if you remember, in circulatory system we have a diagram of an arthropod in the center with an hemocell, so that's wrong because of that. The next one is segmentation. This was first present in annelids, so not a unique feature, not only found in mollusca. Mantle is the thing that's unique to mollusca, and exoskeleton present in arthropods. Mammary glands is the unique feature for mammals. So that will conclude the MCQ set, and thanks for watching. I hope you found this helpful, and if you're interested in joining this speed revision, you can use the link in the description to join the group.